Okay, our next speaker then is Roy Ashok. I hope I got that pronunciation right. He's the staff manager of business development at Qualcomm, responsible for the core Vuforia platform product management. So please give a hand for Roy.
Patrick, thanks for that introduction. You actually pronounced it correctly. Yes, as Patrick said, I'm part of the core Vuforia product management team. And today what I'm going to do is I was hoping to give you a full walkthrough of the Qualcomm Vuforia solution and a tutorial. But Patrick actually did part of it, so I'll try to go over that part a little quickly, and maybe I can talk about some of the upcoming features in Vuforia. So, how many of you are familiar with Vuforia? Okay, and any used Vuforia to develop an app? Oh, okay. Okay, good. So at least this is not completely new material for some of you, and the others will at least get to see some development with the Unity extension. So for those of you who are not familiar with Vuforia, Vuforia is a platform that allows your applications to see. Right? We want, at Qualcomm, we have this vision where we can take this camera and extend it into a digital eye where you can look at all kinds of objects in the real world environment, recognize, and then interact and engage with them in fun and new ways, and actually very useful ways. So primarily what it is it's a vision-based platform. It's not using sensors or GPS and compass to try and tell you where you are and then see in what direction you're oriented and then put some points of interest over there. We actually process the camera frame, and we do that 30 times a second. We extract all the information from it. We tell you where the real world object is that you're interested in, and then very precisely we can tell you where it is so you can then put your content out there. As you can imagine, that's very computationally intensive, and it's something that we work very hard to work not only on Qualcomm chipsets, but across all chipsets. So what that means in terms of use cases is there are fundamentally three types of use cases that we can tackle today. It's what we call these near-field or proximate use cases. So there's gaming and play. So just like I would play a game on my phone, now I can experience that game in the real world. So I'm no longer sitting and playing or twitching it, but I can actually move around, zoom in, zoom out, go close to the augmentations and see the detail in it. Or it's a very different way of engaging with that physical object. And a really good example for this is when we launched Vuforia, I think 3 years ago. It was not called Vuforia at that time. It was just called Qualcomm Augmented Reality Platform. We had this cocktail reception for journalists, and we printed out images that were 6 feet by 6 feet, and we just put them on the ground. And I was just trying to observe how different people interacted with it. Some folks were just standing and looking at the models. It was the first time they were seeing such this kind of an augmented reality experience, so they didn't know what to do with it. Others were on their knees looking at all the detail in those models, which are robots actually, while still others were actually walking around and trying to move those robots around. So it's very, very different type of engagement for different people. So it's clearly something there that's magical actually. And then there's play, and play is all about extending physical toys, right? We play with our toys. Lots of children today spend a lot of time with this. So how do you bridge that gap? And AR has this, just being so unique about connecting physical objects, you can bring new play patterns and experiences to it. 2 years ago at CES 2012, we did a little demo with Sesame Street at CES, where we showed how a play set can come to life with a tablet. Right? Just like how you have these little figures and you make up stories about them and you put them together, now you can use the tablet to drive that play experience. It's called directed play. It can be educational, like you can tell the kid put an object with starts with the letter A, for example. So there's a lot of things there with toys that you can do that we're just beginning to explore. Then there's instructional and educational applications. So this goes back to the roots of AR, right, in aircraft maintenance, where you had all these wiring diagrams overlaid in a heads-up display. But now we have that technology right here on the phone. So your phone can become a see-through user manual, where you can point it at different appliances and get step-by-step instructions for how to use that appliance or how to repair it. So really, really good examples for training. And then in education, for example, there's the example there that you see is actually a full life-sized visualization of an anatomically accurate model of the human body that was done by a developer called Dacry, which you guys are familiar with. And then there's interactive media, and this is where the bulk of the traction is in AR today, or at least the ones that we are seeing. There's a lot of brands clearly see this as a way to connect the physical products with the digital content out there. So basically what it does is it drives brand engagement, right? At the point of interest, the point of sale, and then the point of use. So the point of interest is when you first see or first learn about this product. It could be an advertisement, a poster, like the Subway example that Oscar just showed. That's really the point of interest. And then the point of sale is when you're walking through in retail, there's just product packaging all around you, and you have the ability to interact with that in a very, very unique way. And then the point of use is when you buy this product, you bring it home, and then AR becomes a reason for you to bring it out and use it again and again. So with that, I'll just show you some examples that have been built with the Vuforia platform. I think what you want to see is the range of brands and the depth of experiences that are there. So let me just play this quick video. Oops. Did I not do that right? Okay. So hopefully that gave you a sense for the different types of experiences that have been built with Vuforia and the ecosystem and the brands, right? And these brands are not doing one-off campaigns, but they're coming up again and again with sort of repeat campaigns. So there's clearly value in AR, and there's stickiness around the platform. So Vuforia's ecosystem is pretty much global. We have more than 60,000 developers, 4,300 apps. These numbers keep getting updated. I actually just got updated numbers literally while I was sitting here about 10 minutes ago. So it's a growing community. There's a lot of engagement in the community with not just small guys, but all big brands too. So here's how our developers are spread out all over the world. And, just to give you a sense for the growth in applications here. I forgot to update this slide, but that should be 4,300 to date. But just in the last year, right, it's just gone up tremendously. Okay, so with that, let me just quickly go over the Vuforia platform itself. There's a number of things. I think it's really nice that Patrick went over the different toolkits, so you could and gave you that one slide summary for the different things that you can do. So I'll try to go over this very quickly and give you a little more detail on some of these things. There's a whole bunch of things you can recognize and actions that you can perform with that, and we try to be as simple as possible to suit the needs of sort of developers who are not that savvy about AR necessarily, but who are good developers. But at the same time, give the flexibility that power users need to develop all kinds of rich 3D experiences. And I think in that video, if you look carefully, it reflects that broad spectrum. There's cloud services that we provide. And I'll talk a little bit about that. It goes to some of the questions being asked about how many images you can and how you want to manage those. There's tools that we provide on the web that allow you to tweak these images if possible, and to give you feedback on how recognizable or how trackable these images can be. And there's a lot of developer support and a nice community that's built around the ecosystem. I mean, at any time you go there, you'll have a number of people online helping other users. It's not just our tech support folks on the forums. So what does the platform look like? So if you've done any kind of mobile app development, this should look very familiar. There's nothing complicated about this. You go to our website, you download our SDK. Within that, there are a bunch of libraries that we call the Vuforia engine that you then link statically inside your application. This library has all the computer vision magic inside that sets up the camera pipeline, first of all. We try to simplify this for developers as much as possible. And then it processes all the frames coming from the camera. It recognizes the objects you want recognized, and then tells you where that object is in the field of view 30 times a second. Using that knowledge, you can then render whatever content you want. That content is completely application specific. It can reside on the device, it can reside on the cloud. You can use any rendering engine you want. You can write to OpenGL directly, or you can work with Unity, since we've integrated nicely with the Unity engine as an extension. The images that you want to recognize, what we sometimes call targets, they can be on the device. You can have up to 100 images or targets in each device target database, and you can have multiple device target databases on the phone. So you can switch those out at runtime depending on some kind of user input or some other sort of trigger that tells you, or contextual trigger that says, I'm looking within this 100. Now, in some cases, especially in print and publishing, the sheer number of images that you have, it's just not the sheer number of images and the rate at which they're changing, like in retail and publishing, those images change quite often, and it's not feasible to have all these images on the phone itself. And so for that, we offer a cloud solution, which we know as a cloud target databases, or the cloud recognition system that came online in December last year. And so with that, we offer APIs to simply upload images into this cloud target database, and they become available for recognition within your app within a couple of minutes. So it's a nice workflow that if you as a developer had a CMS that had that interfaced with multiple clients, you can completely have an automated workflow between your CMS and our target management system. So in terms of the vision capabilities, meaning what you can see, there's NFT images. And these images can either be predefined by the developer, either in a cloud system or on the device itself, or downloaded to a device, or they can be user-defined, meaning a user takes a picture of any image, and then you can have that experience happen right there. And so why would you have this? I think in AR gaming, for example, sometimes you don't want the user to be carrying around a specific predefined target. You want to give that user the flexibility to experience a game anywhere. So that's one use case. We also have the notion of simple 3D objects. So these are just a collection of planes, if you will, for which we know the spatial relationship. So it's a little trick that we use. We know it's really because we know we can do NFT tracking very well. If you define the relative positions of these images, then we can look at that object as a 3D object. So simple boxes, cubes, those work really well for that. But you can also, what it's also used for in some cases, it's actually called, the feature is called multi-targets, and some developers use it when they have very, very large targets. So what they do there is they flatten the entire thing. They call it even though they call it a multi-target, because we know the relationship between from one target to another, the spatial relationship, what that allows you is to augment very large content and then zoom in and really get up close to one part of a bigger target. So an example was that the bodies application from called Anatomy 4D from DAQRI, where that entire image is actually life-sized, right? It's made up of small chunks of targets, and the whole image is one big multi-target. So it's a nice little feature, especially when you want to go zoom in on one without losing tracking. We also support something called a frame marker. A frame marker is a 2D barcode, but without all the somewhat of a cleaned up 2D barcode. You can put an image in the center. It's got a little black border with a binary code on the border. We don't actually look at the image in the middle there. The databases can be on the device or they can be on the cloud. As I mentioned before, each device database can have up to 100 images. You can have multiple device databases, either on the phone, or you can host them on your servers and then download them at runtime. The cloud databases is something that we host for you. Each database can have over 1 million. I say 1 million because that's what we've tested. I know developers have done more than that. So it scales really well. Apart from what you can see, there's a whole bunch of creative things you can do, and this goes back to how to make AR fun and engaging, right? You have to give developers the right tools, abstracted at the right level, so they can use that effectively. So one of these is background effects. So this is giving you direct access to texture memory, so you can write shaders and manipulate the background in really nice ways, and we can do that efficiently, not across just the high-end devices, but across all of Android and iOS devices. There's something called virtual buttons, which I think is very unique to AR, and I'll actually show you this in the tutorial a little later. So this is interaction with the actual object. So as a developer, you can define a region on the image that, when occluded or touched, can generate a button press event. So it's a nice way of interacting directly with the real world object. So video playback, very common. The easiest content to create is video, and there's a ton of video out there, yet it's not so easy to play video on a texture. So we've made that really simple, we made that whole pipeline simple. We provide a lot of sample apps that I'm really happy to say that a lot of developers just use without changing. And then occlusion management, this is about, typically when we look at AR by putting an object on top of an image. Or on top of an object. This is a really nice way of visualizing objects inside an image, for example. We support all popular tools, Xcode, Eclipse, and then Unity, and we will support the Android Studio at a later stage. So the one question about, and I think is how do you create these images? What does the target management system look like? It's actually really simple. I don't know, for those of you who are there, and Patrick showed you an example of that. You just simply upload an image. It could be any image, with sufficient amount of detail. But the nice thing about this is it gives you feedback on how good or bad your image is, and actually some practical hints about how to improve that. Now, in some cases, you can do it. You can improve the images, but in a lot of cases, like brands, they don't have that freedom or flexibility to change the image. You can't change your logo just because you wanted to launch an augmented reality app. But that goes back to what that's a problem for us as a platform provider. Our goal is to make this work really well over time. And from our first release to where we are today, we've constantly expanded the set of images and the robustness of the tracking, recognition and tracking. And upcoming releases will just take that to a whole new level. So with that, let me switch very quickly to my PC here. So sorry, my tools work only on the PC for some reason. So I can show you how to build a quick app with Unity. So I have a fun little contraption here that basically allows me to show you what I'm doing. Okay. Oops. Okay, this is nothing but a simple rig with a HTC Evo 4G1. I think it's it's an older version of the HTC One, 1X actually, sorry. And then this is a little webcam to show you what I'm doing out here. So I'm going to use the same Stones target that Patrick used. This just ships with our sample apps. It's just something easy for me to carry. So first, let me show you what I'm going to build. Camera here. So, okay. Can you guys see it? Is it too small? Okay. Let's see how this works. Usually it shows up much bigger. Can you see that green dragon there? No? Okay, there's supposed to be a green dragon being animated with fire coming out of his mouth. Oh, there's the green dragon. You can see him. Sorry. And there you go. So can you see the fire? No? Oh, boy. So I can actually see him here. Let me... so let's see if I can fix this in 1 second. Okay, it won't let me do it. So there was a green dragon there, right? But let me show you. Let's see how to build this application. It's actually a pretty simple build. Okay. So I'm going to use Unity for this one. So just start it up. Okay, so by default, like at least for me, it opens up the previous project that I was working on, right? So I think, so let me try to give you like a very quick overview of the Unity environment. So this is kind of where you build your scene, right? So everything you want to build into your scene shows up nicely out here. The project view is where all your assets are imported and they show up by default out here. So you can then drag and from the project view into the hierarchy to create this the relationship between different elements within your scene. And then on the top left, you can see what's going on for like your preview. The inspector is really cool, and you saw how Patrick used it pretty extensively. I guess he's a power user, so he used it pretty extensively to manipulate the objects. But you can click on any of these, and all the properties show up here, and you can quickly change things out here. So it's really a nice, rich tool. So if you've never used Unity, this is something I would highly recommend that you try. I'm actually not a programmer, and I find it pretty intuitive to use. So that was my 30-second overview of the Unity IDE. So let's start from scratch. So this is exactly the project we want to build. So this is the hierarchy. So you can actually see what we're going to have a virtual button in there. We're going to have the dragon, and it's going to breathe some fire every time I occlude the virtual button, assuming you guys can see it. But I promise you it works. I can show it to you offline. So let's start from scratch. So let's go. We say new project. I can say that's fine. So it'll restart, and then start with a completely empty project. Okay, so there's a few things we have to do. We've got to import some packages into this. The first thing will be the Qualcomm AR extension. We need to bring that one in. The second thing are going to be the actual assets, right? The little, the dragon, and then the particle effects with the fire. And then the third thing will be this image that we want recognized, which is the data set. So those are the three that we're going to quickly import into this environment. So assets, import package, custom package. I've stored it here. So this is the extension. This is the Vuforia extension. Oops, I'll ignore that. Okay, so then let's go grab the so this actually has all the dragon and all of that. So I'll pull that in. Okay, and then the last one will be the data set itself. That's right there. Okay, so the main camera is used for traditional sort of game development in Unity. We don't need that. What we need is actually another kind of asset called the AR camera, which is something that Vuforia provides. And the AR camera basically takes care of that camera view. It manages that whole pipeline for you. So let's delete this and bring the AR camera in. You'll notice this is actually, these are called prefabs. So prefabs, I should have explained this before. It's just a Unity construct for packaging an asset with a bunch of behavior that you can then replicate by simply dragging and dropping. So we go into this. There are a whole bunch of AR prefabs out here, right? Sorry, just prefabs out here. And there's the AR camera. There's one for each type of things that we can see. There's others for things like the interactions that we talked about. So let's go and get the AR camera first. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we got the AR camera, and then we need to have this notion of recognizing an image. In this case, it's called an image target. So let's pull an image target into the scene. Okay, so there you go. So you can scale out a bit. And then if you go into the inspector, you select image target, and then you go to the inspector here. You'll see the different types of data sets. So dragon stones. There's only one image in there. But what you also have to do is, because we have this notion of multiple data sets that you can load into memory and then activate them depending on triggers without losing too much delay. So we have to actually go and say load this and then activate it. And we only have one data set here, so we just have to check those boxes there. Okay, so now that we've got this, let's bring the dragon in, I guess. So the dragon's here. This is an asset that was created. Now, the way we have to, because the dragon has to appear only when you're detecting that image, it's linked. Oh, I only have 1 minute? Okay, so let me go really fast. So just drag and drop this. So you create this this hierarchy where the dragon appears only when the image target is detected, right? So this is what Unity lets you do. It's going to let you scale this and move this around. And then what you need to do is you need to put the fire on the dragon's mouth, right? So here's the fire. It's just a particle effect. Again, it's connected only to the dragon. So again, the relationship is between the fire and the dragon. So drag and drop it on the dragon directly, right? And then you can get to position this in different ways. And this is what I really like about Unity. You just go in there. You have this ability to pause and start these things. Okay. So that was that, and well, you can simulate it if you want. And then the other thing is, let me show you how to do the virtual button. You want to trigger this only when this when a button is occluded. So when you cover this up with your hand or something else, then you want to trigger that effect. So for that, what we need to do is go back to our AR extension here. There's a prefab for virtual button, right? So in the virtual button, you can define those virtual buttons only on image targets. So drag and drop it on the image target, right? And then position it, which one of our engineers helpfully marked it in a red thing here. So I'll do that here. And then go into the end. You can go and change the size so it scales nicely. Okay. So now that we've positioned the virtual buttons here, we just have to do. There's a couple of other things we've got to do. There are some scripts that we have to tie in with to the behavior. So one thing is we wanted that dragon being animated. I don't know if you guys noticed that in that really tiny preview. So for that, there's a little script here. So just it's really simple. All it's saying is just some calculating its position based on time and some speed parameter that we have. So drag and drop that on the image target behavior. And then there's the virtual button event handler, which you want to say when you cover that button, trigger the particle system. That's all. So so you want to drag that and drop it on the image target. So one thing, and then you go here, and so you'll see this was the script for the animation piece. So 80 is pretty fast. I generally have it at 6. So, how much time? 1 minute? It'll crash my laptop. Okay, that's fine. But that's pretty much it. What you have to do, we've actually built the entire app. After that, it's simply a build and run. I'm not going to do that. I actually want to talk about a couple of upcoming features out here. So, we're actually we generally do about 2 releases a year, and we're coming up around that time when we're going to have a release this year. So one of the features that we're talking about is actually text recognition, and this goes out to our vision that we want to recognize all kinds of things in the world, and text is pretty prevalent. So the next release will actually have text reco. The languages we're going to support are English initially, so it'll be simple word-based recognition, and then we'll evolve that. The other thing that I'm pretty excited about is actually dramatically improved tracking. It's something that I think with this release, the range of images that we can actually track will go up significantly. So a lot of things like corporate logos that we just couldn't do before in a very reliable way, we'll be able to do it really, really well. So with that, if I'm done with my 1 minute, I am happy to take any questions. And sorry we couldn't go through this faster. Yes.
Hi, I just missed the very last thing that you dropped and dragged over there. You did
I just pulled a custom virtual button event handler because you want to trigger the behavior of a virtual button to the particle effect being played. So you just drag that off. All these tutorials are on YouTube, by the way, or on Vuforia.com, so you can see this. This is not. I'm just doing one of the standard tutorials we have. Somebody else had a question here? Yes.
Can you use it for outdoor applications as well, so where the market's in building?
I'm sorry, sir?
Can you use it for outdoor applications as well, so where the marker is in building?
Okay. Some of our developers have done that. It's not something I would recommend. There's a lot of things that change. Actually, there's a developer who's presenting at this conference who's done that. It's just different environmental conditions. They're constantly changing. So I, as a product manager, I have to be careful what I say because, the last thing you want to say is something and then, some user, it doesn't work in some conditions and then there's a bad review about it. But developers have done it. Yeah. Yes?
When is the next release?
Good question. So spring. So we have a spring and a fall release, and technically spring is not over. Very soon. Any other questions?
Is it any work going on the power management? Because I thought we are applications to drink a lot of power.
Yeah.
Than a mobile.
Yeah.
We should Qualcomm
Sure.
chipsets and all that.
Yeah.
Is there work going on the
Okay. So the question is there any work going on power management with AR? So I may have failed to say this, but we work on all chipsets on Android 2.3 devices and above with the upcoming release. We also work on iOS. So, we're not just Qualcomm, but we are optimized for Qualcomm. Those are our chipsets. So there's things we do in hardware that actually that help with that. And as you said, AR is extremely power hungry. It's like playing a video game and capturing video at 30 frames per second simultaneously, and that's not easy. So we spend a lot of time trying to optimize that. Yes. Yes.
Did you do the study about the limitation of the application? You mentioned about the performance of the Qualcomm chips. What is the most complex scenario that we can achieve with the current hardware and the current tool that we have?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I can't give you a definitive answer for that, but what I can tell you is, one of the things we say is that we really try to optimize our algorithms to work across a broad range of chipsets. Right? We don't try to work only at the high end, because when we say we work on all, up until now we used to say we work on all Android 2.2 devices and above. Right? So that goes back a good year and a half. There's single core devices, there's 800 megahertz devices. So it's and we also say that we work not just with one image, we work with up to 5 images simultaneously. So there's a lot of computer vision going on there, and it's extremely taxing on the system. But so I guess to answer your question, it's both computer vision and the rendering piece. It's just the AR piece, I guess. That's extremely taxing.
I think we gotta move on.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. No, not at all.
I'm around, so I'm happy to take questions offline too.